Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. In this week's program, state violence against local residents in Dolpa district, Nepal. New Indian government clamps down on civil society organizations. New publication on Sri Lanka's long history of disappearances. Domestic workers vulnerable to abuse in Pakistan. Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. I'm Josephina Bergston. A brutal police crackdown on June 3rd in Do village, located in the upper regions of Nepal's Dolpa district, has left 2 people dead, Tsering Purva, age 30, and Dundup Lama, age 47. More than 50 others were critically injured. Most victims belong to Do and the neighboring Tsarka villages. The source of the dispute in the case centers on the authority and justification for royalty collection for Yarsa gamba, a caterpillar fungus which fetches high prices due to its medicinal value. The skirmish took place between 2 groups of local residents from Do village and Buffer Zone Management Committee officials from the district headquarters in Dunai, who had been accompanied by 35 armed police force personnel, as well as another 15 local police personnel. Police abuse of power and use of brutal violence with impunity is now systemic in Nepal. The AHRC is concerned about the threat faced by Mr. Purva Dundup, who helped publicize this instance of police brutality. Here is more from Mr. Dundup about this police crackdown.
The police were using lots of racial slurs such as this is not your country, this is Nepal, something like that, and also Bhotias, we will kill you all, and such kind of lot of racial slurs against the people who were detained and who were beaten. We have short-term and long-term demands, and for the short-term, we immediately need compensation and justice to the family of the victims, especially the dead ones, Mr. Tsering Purva and Mr. Dundup Lama. And also, we also demand the reimbursement of all the helicopter charter costs and reimbursement of medical expense of the injured. And we also demand immediate action against the police and also the high orders involved.
The AHRC urges the government of Nepal to immediately intervene and conduct an impartial investigation into the allegation of police violence and murder. The AHRC also demands the government to take steps to ensure the safety of Mr. Purva Dundup. Lastly, the government should provide free medical treatment to the injured and compensation to the families of those killed in the violence. The government in India is not known for its friendly attitude to civil society organizations, though it has never before clamped down upon the open space for public debates on human rights issues in the country. Yet, after the change of union government, which is now led by the BJP, the Central Intelligence Bureau has filed a controversial report to the government with sweeping allegations of anti-national activities against civil society organizations in India. The report is seen by civil society as a primary step by the new government to clamp down on civil society space in the country. On this issue, we spoke with Mr. Bijo Francis, Executive Director of the AHRC.
The report that has been filed by the Intelligence Bureau to the Government of India, of which a copy has been sent to the Prime Minister's office as well as to the Home Minister, speaks about wide allegations against civil society organizations, suggesting that civil society activism in India, particularly concerning development programs which the Government of India has been promoting, has caused loss to the gross domestic product to the rate of 2 to 3% per annum. Now, the idea is to identify agencies, civil society organizations, as well as organizations that support civil society organizations in that kind of activity, is to target them and to portray them as some kind of anti-development, anti-state entities. Now, if we look at the crux of what these development projects are, building of dams, hydroelectric projects, petroleum or other natural resources mining programs like bauxite and so on and so forth, These are undertaken in areas which is highly sensitive as far as environment stability is concerned. It involves eviction, often forced eviction of indigenous communities against their will, without their information, without their consent. So what the civil societies have been doing, largely what the civil societies have been doing, is to organize the communities which have been adversely affected by these programs. What is actually the essence of this report is that the government is now planning in some form, we don't know the details yet, to make sure that people who are to be evicted for these kind of programs will be evicted by all means possible. And whoever restricts that, or whoever opposes that, or whoever raises voice against that unjustifiable eviction from hut and hearth of these people will be prosecuted or will be considered as anti-national, which is very concerning. So this is the essence of the report. But the concern now is that this report is a precursor to serious clamping down of civil society activism in India, and the fact that there is a new government in power which is not very friendly with the civil societies during their past periods of time in power is an additional factor that all civil society organizations in India and those who are concerned about human rights in India should be very much aware of and be worried about.
And now to the issue of disappearances in Sri Lanka. A recent study by Jane Thompson, called A Sociological Exploration of Disappearances in Sri Lanka, explores how enforced disappearances became a ruthless political tool of the ruling elites to eliminate all political opposition and create mistrust within communities. The phenomenon started in 1971 and is still used today. Tens of thousands of people have been disappeared. This publication, published by the AHRC, details how the rule of law was dismantled and survivors were left with no possible legal redress and often socially ostracized. The perpetrators eliminated thousands of people with total impunity, and as a result, Sri Lanka turned into a deeply fractured and violent society. For more on this, we spoke with the author of the book, Jane Thompson.
I document how emergency powers used over a lengthy period of time and well beyond the original purposes for which they were intended were abused or used, if you like, to abduct or remove people and leading to their ultimate disappearance. So I think certainly the emergency legislation was a key aspect to enforce disappearance in Sri Lanka. But I think equally importantly is the kind of ethos under which disappearances were carried out. Really, disappearance in my mind served as an integral part of a political strategy to demobilise and eliminate any form of anti-government sentiment. So political opposition, young male youths, anybody seen as a threat to the political elite's vested interest and authority were targeted in this regime. Effectively what we're talking about is the mechanisms used by a regime to turn a democracy into what was for all intents and purposes a dictatorship. The police and the military were completely politicised and used for this narrow political project of maintaining the political elite's power and position. The police is supposed to be a source of authority and protection and security, actually became a source of great fear and terror and abuse. And I think it's in that context that one must understand the position of relatives of the disappeared. Most of them who I spoke to immediately went to the police station after their relative was taken. Now, because they believed, of course, as one would, that the police would do the right thing and identify where their relative has gone and try and rectify what they thought was a wrong. And what they found was that this was a situation in which they were up against an entire apparatus determined to conceal the offence and which not only conceal the offence but politicise the relatives themselves as potential terrorists or subversives, while systematically depoliticising and delegitimising their claims as personal matters. It's all part of a project to conceal and to maintain a facade of law and order, whilst or at the same time disappearing people and obstructing any effort on the part of their relatives to find the truth of what has happened, let alone to seek any sort of justice. That was part of a systematic effort to erode and disable, if you like, checks and balances on detention procedures. So that, in cooperation with the provisions whereby people could be held in incommunicado detention for long periods of time, were integral in allowing the security forces the space and the means by which they could abduct, possibly torture, and disappear and ultimately execute and bury individuals without the families having any recourse to the courts or to try and establish the whereabouts, let alone the well-being of their loved one in detention.
Pakistan is a deeply class-based society with a high social acceptance of having servants in your home if you are fortunate. However, half of the population live below the poverty line. People with no education and marketable skills often fall into domestic work. It's estimated that around 8.5 million people work as domestic workers, doing house cleaning, laundry, cooking, dishwashing, babysitting, and so on. Many human rights violations take place within this area, and many women and children especially are extremely vulnerable to abuse. To shed more light on this, we spoke with Bushra Khalik, human rights defender based in Lahore in Pakistan.
Some NGOs have estimated that it's around 8.5 million people who work as the domestic workers, where the big number of young children and women are engaged into that labor. There is no legal protection available for them. There is no social protection for them because their recruitment are always on the basis of verbal agreements, and the owner or the owner of the house or the employer is the sole authority who can hire even the very young children as the age of 5 or 6 year old children can be hired. So there is no any legal or social mechanism available for the protection and for the security of these vulnerable domestic workers. I see that it's very alarming that the abuse of these children or workers or young girls, sexual abuse, violence, and sometimes rape or murder, that is quite socially acceptable. And that is very concerning for us because, they protect each other. Whenever the case is reported or comes into the media, the other people come forward, other powerful segments come forward and give a lot of justifications for that. On the other side, the employers enjoys the maximum economic exploitation, and they because there is no legal mechanism to regulate these laborers, or this is a kind of unrecognized sector and socially acceptable. So the employers take the maximum benefit of this kind of chronic poverty or the negligence from the side of the state, and in the absence of any other legal or social protection, they continue this kind of exploitation.
That is all for this week's Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. For more information, log on to www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.